Hello, good morning everybody. Welcome to another week-long video. I'm assuming that's what it's gonna end up being because we have some really exciting stuff to share. Also, my mic only has 10% battery because I don't charge it, so we're gonna try to make this quick. I'm gonna try my best not to ramble, but we know I have a hard time with that. I just recently got back from out of town, and while I was gone, this box was delivered, and I knew this box was gonna be delivered while I was gone, so I sat there, I think, for 3 days out of state, just knowing this was waiting for me at home. And it was torture. I won't lie to you. If you're unsure of what this is a PR box for the book Alchemized by Sen-Len Yu. This is easily one of the most exciting PR boxes I've ever received because I know the origins of this book. I'm not going to go into too much detail simply because for the sake of the community that it came from, I'm just not even going to talk about it. We're going to try our best to direct people to separate the original work from this new one because they do need to stand on their own. But look at it. It came with all this other fun stuff. I made a video on TikTok and Instagram, which you can go check out on these 2 pages if you want to see the full unboxing. I'm so excited, and something that's also really fun that I don't think I actually left in those is that they gave me the audiobook for free as well. And I have seen clips of the narrator reading a bit of the book, and she has quite a nice voice. So I might do like an immersive read with it. I think that'd be really fun, but I'm not gonna fully audiobook it. I want my eyeballs to be following along. Look at this though. It's chunky. It's okay. It's not as thick as I thought it would be. However, I think that's greatly due to the fact that these are probably the thinnest pages I've ever seen in my life. I was talking to someone and I was like, the best way I can describe this paper is like Bible paper. Can you hear that? That might be really aggressive ASMR and I apologize. But it's that glossy, really thin paper. And I think it's because if they used standard paper that most novels use, this thing would be just way too thick. And this is also hardcover. This bitch is heavy. I need to get back in the gym to hold this thing. I'm so excited about this though. I'm really excited to see where this author took this story, how they approach it this time, meeting the new characters and the world building, magic system, everything about it. I'm really hoping there is just as much emotional devastation in this one. I hope my heart falls into my butt. I hope it shatters into little pieces. I want to be so unwell that I want to call off work, okay? I love being emotionally devastated with books. It really is my favorite thing. The one downside of this book is that I am currently in the middle of several other books, but this is going to consume my life. And so I feel like what should happen in this video is it's gonna just primarily be you joining me for a week of me starting this book. Today is September 22nd, and this book comes out tomorrow. Actually, now that I'm realizing it. So everyone's gonna have a piece of this. So by the time this video goes up, the book has been out for a little bit. I highly suggest if you don't want any spoilers, don't read. I'm gonna try to stay vague with it, but I don't know. I might talk about what I've read, I might explain things. So if you have not started this book, maybe don't watch if you don't want anything spoiled. I will put on the screen right now how far into the book I've made it, page-wise or chapter-wise, so that you can know ahead of time, because maybe you started it and you're further ahead, so it doesn't matter. So I'll do that for you. I'll do you that. You're welcome. I'm so excited. I'm really upset that I work today because I just want to read this and I have some other things I need to do, but we're cracking this bad boy open tonight. What I am going to say though is tomorrow or tonight at midnight when this shit's released, I am buying the Kindle version because I'm gonna want to read like this in bed, and I'm telling you right now that's not happening with how heavy this is. No, no, no. All right, it'll probably be about 2 seconds for you, lots of hours for me, but I will see you when I'm cracking this bad boy open. It has in fact been hours, but now it is time to officially start this. I am reading it at my desk right now because if I lay down, I'll probably want to go to sleep and I can't hold this bitch up. So I am buddy reading this. Surprise, surprise, who am I buddy reading it with? Lynn Moore. Per usual, the crowd is not shocked. We are going to read the prologue and chapter 1. So let's do it. I can tell you right now, based off of the first 3 paragraphs of this, it is not going to be nice emotionally to us, Fox and friends. It is going to actually be quite mean. Quite mean. I forgot to clock out. I have officially read the first chapter, well, the prologue and the first chapter of Alchemized, and Okay. I said in the beginning, I believe, that I want to separate this from the original work because I do think, for many reasons, this book deserves to be read and enjoyed without the idea of the original work in mind. I don't think it's fair to try to come into this comparing the two. However, there is something that I want to just say about it, knowing the original work. You can definitely feel some elements, and I think the main element here, which I feel very confident in saying, especially because of the letter that came with the PR box, is that the main thing that's going to remain the same in this story is the very brutal and harsh realities of war and being someone in that. And I feel like our character is going to maybe experience some of the same things of essentially being used and abused on both sides. Being only 16 pages into this, I don't have like a extreme foundation, a solid foundation to really speak on anything of where this story is going to go. There are elements that feel similar, and I think that's okay. You're going to go into this book, there's going to be points where you're like, that's kind of reminding me of XYZ, and that's okay, because obviously there are pieces that the author decided that they wanted to keep in. For me personally, I wanted it to be very different because I read that story. And also for other people who have read it, I want them to be able to experience it in a fresh new story by this author that just kind of touches on those same things. I think the emotional points that the author hit in the original story is what's going to still be hit here. I feel like it even has a chance to be meaner, but in a different way. I think a really big element and thing that played a part in the emotional devastation of the original work was your familiarity with the characters, especially if you grew up with them. It fucking sucked. It was kind of like seeing your childhood friends go through those things. Whereas this author now has to make us care about these new characters. It takes both a lot and not a lot for me to care about a character, and that's very confusing, and I don't really know how to explain that, but if this author manages to pull off me caring about these brand new characters just to then hurt my feelings, bravo, and I cannot wait for it. Lots of exposition, but it's a thick boy. We gotta establish some stuff in this bitch. This is where we're leaving off for right now, though, and then we will read again later. And I'm excited and terrified for what awaits me in this story. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I was thinking as I was reading, so there's someone in the book called the High Necromancer, and I was wondering if that was the new replacement for like the High Reeve name from the original work. It's not. The High Reeve's in here. Listen. I do think it's helpful to have like that even more separation for those who have read it, but High Reeve is such a fucking cool name. I'm not even gonna lie to you. We got the High Necromancer and the High Reeve. Kinda sweet. I'm also someone who's such a lover of dark fantasy, and by that I mean I like dark fantasy that has some fucked up stuff in it, but not for just the sake of making it fucked up. It serves a purpose. It adds an element to the story. It adds something to the plot, and this is doing that. This has that, and I love it. I love dark fantasy. Make me feel bad. Make me feel, ooh, I love it. It's an amazing feeling. Oh my god. Someone's chest was ripped apart in Crazy Town. This book is so impossible to hold. I have changed positions at least 6 times trying to find a comfortable way. Here is fine for a little bit, and then it starts hurting. So then I go down here, but then I'm like, fuck, I'm blind even with my glasses on. Could I turn more light on? Probably. I'm not gonna though. Only 13 more minutes until I can get the Kindle version. That's gonna be a beautiful time. They're talking about this thing called vivisection or something like that. First of all, the first time I saw this word, I thought it said vasectomy. Don't ask. I just saw a V and sec, and I went, vasectomy. It doesn't make sense. Then to try to conceptualize what it is, because obviously I don't know much about necromancy, if I'm being so honest. I don't think I've ever, except for the Necromancer's House, read anything that had necromancy in it. I went, okay, so they want to perform something similar to a lobotomy? I don't know if that's correct either. I feel like I'm pretty far off, but I'm just going with it for right now. It's what's making it make sense in my brain, and that's all that matters in my opinion. God, this fucking hurts. so many words in here I've never heard out loud. And so my brain's like, and now we're going to choose the most jackass way to pronounce it. Mithridatism. 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 Fuck. I don't know, and it doesn't matter, I don't think, but every time I reach a word that I don't know how to pronounce, it does make me have to pause, sound it out in a weird way, choose the weirdest way that I'm comfortable with, and then go back and start the sentence over again because I don't remember what I read because I was too focused on the freaking pronunciation of this word. Mithridatism. I need to just stop. Just give up. The High Reeve was Bennett's favorite after all. Morrow waved a dismissive hand as he vanished into the shadows. It's time he's given more to do than hunting. Ah! Chapter 2 done, on to Chapter 3. I gotta find a comfier position because this is not sustainable, Fox and friends. Wow, my sunset lamp is really aggressive lighting and I do apologize. Unfortunately for me, I don't think that the Kindle version is released until midnight PST. I am not gonna get it on my Kindle tonight. That's fine, I guess. I'll just lay like this. I want the Kindle version so bad. This just in, Google lied to me, and it is now available on Kindle, so I am opening it on Kindle. Thank you so much. I am so excited to be able to sit comfortably and finally just fully immerse myself in this story without sitting here thinking, gee, I'm quite uncomfortable while reading this book. Now I just have to figure out where I'm at in this. Okay, now I need to reach another page break. Wow, I read more than I thought I had in this chapter. What's super fun about a Kindle too is it tells me how little progress I've made in this chonky boy, you know? I have 19 minutes left in the chat. Well, it probably needs to actually learn my real reading speed rather than me clicking through. I'm 5% into this book. Okay, time to get comfy cozy. I love a Kindle. Oh no, I just lost my space. What the fuck? I found my spot again. I'm gonna go read now. Thank you. Good morning. I finished reading around like 1 a.m. last night. That chapter 3 took me over an hour to read. What was it? Around like 12:10 is when I managed to get it on my Kindle. And I do think I started reading a little bit faster when it was on my Kindle simply because I wasn't having to like change how I was sitting and holding the book. That book, heavy, very uncomfortable to read. I think even if it was a paperback, it'd still be kind of uncomfortable, but because it's a hardcover, it's even more. So very happy to have the Kindle version. I wanted to share my thoughts 3 chapters in, still early on, but I want to give my thoughts as I read throughout this week. And so just, you know, the beginning of a book, it is the setup for the rest of the story. It sets the tone and kind of the reader's expectations in a way. This is what I'm going to say. There are a lot of big words used in this book, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with reading and learning new words. I actually quite like that. I love finding a new word that tickles my brain. However, it does feel like we have a little bit of an overuse of big words for the sake of maybe trying to make these characters sound very intellectual. I don't necessarily think that needs to be a thing. I think you can have very intellectual characters without them sounding like they looked up some fancy words to use here and there. It just feels like it's a bit overdone with that. I don't think it's necessary. I think if we cut back maybe 30% of those, it would help the story kind of flow a little bit more seamlessly, because I'm gonna tell you right now, a lot of the readers probably are, well, I don't know, but I feel like a majority of readers are probably like myself, where if there's a new word that you've never heard said out loud or that you're learning, it does disrupt the flow because your brain is trying to sound it out, is trying to like figure out what it means with the context that's surrounding it. And so I do think that an overuse of that sometimes hurts the flow of your prose, and that's just my opinion. Chapter 3 was quite long in the sense of I feel like it could have probably been cut up at least into 2 chapters, maybe even 3, and it was quite heavy on the info dumping that tends to sometimes happen, especially in fantasy books, and it's kind of expected in some way, but also it doesn't, just because it might be expected doesn't mean it makes it good or okay or that you can just like look over it. Chapter 3 specifically felt very heavy on like the info dumping, where I went, I don't know if I need to know all of this, or I don't know if this was the only way that you could have shared this information with me. I feel like there could have been some ways to do it in a more natural way rather than just like Helena's internal monologue telling me all of this history of all of these different things. She was going up an elevator and telling me the history of the building and what it used to be, and then it wasn't super necessary because in my opinion, I think pieces of it, obviously a person being in that situation would reflect on like what a building used to be, but they wouldn't for as long as the character did. And so it's a tough game to play. It's a tough line to walk with it, but I think that's where editors should come in and possibly be like, hey, this is just a little heavy-handed. I'm hoping that maybe after the first 10 chapters or so, that kind of calms down once the author feels and trusts us as the readers to be able to understand this story without having all this, or that the author feels comfortable in how much world building they have done so that they can just let us live in this world now and live on more of like a need to know basis with like new information. There's definitely some intrigue in it though. I do think, and this is the one thing, is I really want to go into this not thinking of the original work, but it is quite hard. I think honestly, I would have preferred to have not read the original work before reading this, because I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, there's a lot of things that are set up kind of the same way. There's this same tone about it. And unless this author makes like drastic changes to everything, I in some ways know like a big thing that's going to happen. And that kind of sucks. It kind of pulls away from the enjoyment of it, for me at least. It's in a way like knowing the big plot twist of a movie before going to the theater, and you're like, I'm just anticipating, I'm waiting to see how they do it. And obviously there is intrigue there of, I would like to see how the author pulls it off this time and XYZ and see what my emotions are going to be. But knowing the plot twist, possible plot twist, obviously I don't know if that's actually what's going to happen. It does kind of like suck in a way, but that's not the author's fault. That is my fault. Well, it's no one's fault. It's just, that's not on the author. That's just because I read the original work that this is based off of. Therefore, unless major changes happen, I don't think I'm going to be super surprised. And I think the fact that the author did have to take the original work down probably alludes to the fact that it's not going to be changed that much, though they could have also taken it down because people were illegally making money off of their work. So it could be that too. But anyways, it's not too bad of a first few 3 chapters. I mean, it felt like I was having to do a decent amount of like heavy lifting mind-wise getting through chapter 3 specifically, but like I said, I'm hopeful that it will get easier. I'll find a rhythm, the author will find a rhythm, the exposition will slightly, we shall see. Definitely going to read more. We want to try to read a lot more every night because it is 1,000 pages and we do not want to take an entire month to read this if possible, but we both have many of things to do in a day, so we shall see. We got the 9 to 5, 5 to 9, writing books, trying to read books too. There's only so much time in the day, and I think that's kind of rude. I wish I could pause it sometimes. You remember that movie, The Click or whatever? You could just pause shit. That'd be so nice. I just reached chapter 13 of Alchemy, so a little under 20% of the way through. I did, for the last 2 chapters, listen to the audiobook of it. Not bad, quite nice. I probably will do like a mixture of listening to it on audio and physically reading it because it will just help me consistently get through it. Again, I'm really upset because I really wanted to go into this book completely separating it from its original work, but I think I'm just even throwing away that hope because I think the reason I'm able to listen to an audiobook is there is so much familiarity there. So for example, and like I said, this is just gonna don't watch this video. I'm gonna put a thing in the beginning. Don't watch this video if you don't want any spoilers, if you're not where I'm at in the story. The scene that I actually completely forgot about until it started playing out of the party that they had. The second it started playing, I went, oh my god, I remember this. And I swear to god, if this motherfucker kisses his wife and then looks at Helena during it, and he did. He sure fucking did. There are still some differences. There's still some like mystery and intrigue of things that I can't wait for it to be like unraveled and for it to piece together for me. And there might be some things that were in the original story that I'm just not remembering, but some of it is kind of fun to have that reference of the original story and being like, oh my god, is this gonna happen? Like, did the author keep this in there? And they did. How it's feeling for me actually is in a way of going to see the film or TV show adaptation of a book that you read where there's going to be some changes, but hopefully the overall story is similar. That's what it's kind of feeling like for me right now. But I don't mean that in a bad way, because a lot of the adaptations I watch well, except for the Wool series, Silo, the Apple TV series based off of the Wool book series. That one, I think the show adaptation is much stronger than the book series, and I have read all 3 books. Can't wait for the next season. Thank you. But yeah, it kind of feels like that, but not in a bad way. It's this anticipation, it's kind of the excitement of, is this going to play out? Like, is this certain scene going to play out the way that it did in the original? And then getting to see how the author kind of repackaged it into this new one, this new setting with these new characters. It is quite interesting. This is me. This is a piece of me that I think other readers probably experience as well, but others couldn't give a rat's ass about. I hate the overuse of any certain words in books. So Fourth Wing, there are many things I disliked about the book. Main one being the overuse of the word parapet, especially in the beginning of the book. In this book, the word used to describe essentially magic is resonance. I'm really overhearing it. In some ways, I would be less annoyed hearing the word magic as much as I've heard the word resonance, but I'd still be annoyed. I feel like there's certain ways that you can find to like switch it up a little bit, but I hear it at least 5 times every chapter. And that might not seem like a lot, but 5 times every single chapter, minimum. I would say a 5 to 10 actually. It's one of those words too, resonance, that kind of sticks out where my mind latches onto it every single time. This is something that just like that's how my brain works. So I remember I was alpha reading my friend's book, and I forget what word they used, but I think they used it more than 5 times within like a short space. And one of the first things I asked was like, do you know how often you used XYZ word? And before they could answer, I was like, I'll tell you, you used it this many times and I need you to switch it up a little bit because it's such a standout word that you pay attention. So unlike the word said, you know, that dialogue tag, sometimes I think it's better to keep that simple, but the word said, it's just such a basic word. You zoom over, you fly over, you don't pay too much attention. Something like the word resonance, my brain at least is locking onto it, and I know at least one other person is getting annoyed by it. So that's my only main thing right now. There are still some moments where it feels a little bit like an info dump history lesson on the world, where I feel like we could find more seamless ways, more natural ways of learning things. Like it's being interjected sort of in a need to know basis, but also I sit there and I'm like, do I need to know all of this right now? I need those of you to know, in case you're not familiar with how I am, I'm picky and I really pay attention to like those sort of things, and those are the things for me as a reader that really stand out to me in books, whether it be good or bad. It's something that just like for some reason my brain is wired to really pay attention to, overuse of words and how you go about world building. So those 2 things are really my only gripes so far, but that's what it was from the beginning. Honestly, I don't think that's too bad. At least the list isn't growing. It'd be sweet if both of those things lessened. But we shall see. Like I said, I'm barely 20% of the way into this book. I actually did want to show you this one thing real quick though, which was this fan art that I saw for Alchemized. Shit goes fucking hard. It is so damn good. Where is it? This. Are you shitting my dick? Look at it. Look at it. Oh my god. Like, are you kidding me? I wish I could draw. The people who can draw are God's favorite. I used to want to be an artiste. I really thought it was my calling. My brother can draw like it's absolutely nobody's business. And I remember one summer I was like, I'm gonna be like him. For a second I thought I was going to be like a fashion designer, but only the person who drew the stuff. Don't ask me why. I'd never had a passion for fashion. So I bought like a sketchbook and like one of the pencils that my brother used and shit like that, and I drew a stick figure in that bitch, and it was a wonky stick figure. I couldn't even draw a straight line. The legs were fucking crooked on that bad boy. God knew that I'd be too much of a menace in the drawing community, so he went, I'm gonna just snatch that away. He also made it so I can't sing, which does piss me off. Well, you can play instruments, but you can't sing. You know how annoying it is? I learn a new sad song and I don't get to beautifully sing the sad song in a haunting way and then have the little echo voice effect and put it on TikTok so that everybody gets in their feels. I would sacrifice someone's child to be able to sing. But like, not sacrifice. Did I go too far with that? No. I want to sing. I think all of my friends can sing. So that's so nice for them. I love it for them. That's great, bitches. If any of you have read the original story and you remember a certain scene that has to do with organs, I just reached the new version of it, and it's honestly better because of the necromancy part of it all. It makes that scene more brutal somehow, and the original scene is pretty brutal already. I'm currently in the beginning parts of chapter 16. We've discovered some things about a certain person. I feel like it is starting to ramp up a little bit, which is quite nice. Not saying that it was sluggish in the beginning, because it wasn't by any means, but there wasn't anything like fully pulling you, or at least me pulling me through the story. I think what's really been the driving force so far is just my curiosity as to see how this story plays out and is reshaped, I guess you could say. I would say that's still a big part of it, but I think the new elements of the story are starting to ramp up where that's starting to play a part in the driving force for my interest of the book. I was actually asked if my interest in the book had increased at all recently, and I stated that it hasn't. It's still about the same amount, and I do still stand by that. I'm only a few chapters further in from when I had said that, but when I say that my interest hasn't grown, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it also hasn't lessened by any means. I have had a very consistent amount of investment in the story, and I do think that's a good thing, because there's definitely been books where I lost interest and investment the further I got into it, and that makes it quite hard. I think if anything, I would rather have less interest in the beginning and then have that grow rather than have a ton and have it kind of start to waver. So for this book to so far keep that quite consistent for me right now, like my level of that, I think is pretty good. I am still over the word resonance, and I actually did look up on the Kindle version how many times it's said, and the word resonance is said 528 times. I think I said that I thought something happened. He was ripping this dude's organs out, and I thought that was the new approach to a scene that happened in the original work where he disemboweled the man after he did what he did to Helena's character. No, wait, he did more. So I remember pieces of the original story. I remember like little moments, and one of them was the disembowelment. I don't remember what happened before then, but no, he still disemboweled him. It's fucked up. Don't get me wrong, but it's funny. Anyways, I just really enjoyed that scene. Also, fun fact, I bought a new coat. You will see it in some future video probably. Not this one though, because it's gotta come from a different country, and I didn't realize I was looking at coats in a different country, so then I got hit with a fat customs fee. You don't care. You're here for Alchemize, but I thought you should know that the reason I'm not as far into this book as I thought I would be is because I spent 6 hours looking for a coat, and you're probably like, hey, couldn't you have listened to Alchemize during that? No. I needed every last brain cell active of trying to figure out different ways to search for the damn coat. Can't find any skirts that I like in the color that I want either, so, life is disemboweling me. I am on chapter 23, which is the second flashback, if you will, of the book. I have some thoughts. Again, like I've mentioned several times, I am just speaking in spoilery terms, I guess you could say, because I do want to discuss the story. I'm not here to market the story necessarily to you. I'm here to share my thoughts on it as someone who read the original work as well. There is an element of the original book that does involve sexual assault. It's a big piece of it, actually. And in the book, that first was mentioned and took place in chapter 18. And then by chapter 20, we essentially had the end result that we were doing that for, which is becoming pregnant. And for me, though I can't fully remember how long it took place in the original work, it felt like it was longer. It felt like the author made us sit in that very uncomfortable aspect of the story for longer. And And when I say that, I don't mean it in like an excessive way or a romanticized way. I do think in the original book, it was brought up with purpose and never just for the sake of it. And a big part of that then plays into when you do reach the flashbacks and you learn the true nature of those two individuals and those two characters' relationship, and then thinking back on, oh my God, he had to do that to someone that he loves. And so that is a big piece of the emotional devastation of the original work. And I'm not saying that it only happening in 2 chapters is going to take away from that, because it still was just as uncomfortable. But in some aspects, I feel like the author needed to force us to sit in that uncomfortable feeling for longer so that you can have a chance at matching that emotional devastation. It's still going to be, I feel like, devastating for people who are reading it for the first time and learn that news, but in some ways it felt a bit rushed. And I don't know if the author did that for the sake of just not wanting to harp on it, not wanting to go over it as much, but I don't feel like in the original work it was done carelessly, if that makes sense. I feel like the reasoning why we had to sit through it for so long was so that the author really felt or could come as close to understanding how much that character is enduring and suffering through, and then for all of the like truth and the history of everything to be revealed in the flashbacks. It just felt a little bit rushed through, and I feel like that did play such like a big part. And maybe this is just a piece of the story where the author was like, this is where I'm changing stuff up a little bit, which I might understand as well. The one thing I'm going to say is that I was hoping to have more of an emotional investment into the characters and their outcomes as original characters than I do right now, which I don't really have any. I don't have this connection with the characters outside of my connection and investment in wanting to see how this plays out in comparison to the original work. And I don't know if that would be different if I wasn't familiar with the original story. So that's something where I can't say the author did a poor job necessarily at making you emotionally invested in them, because at the end of the day, I can't unknow what I already know. I can't unfamiliarize myself with the story that is being presented to me. And the story is just so close to the original one. It's very hard to separate the two. And trust me, I'm trying to. Every single scene, I am trying my best to separate it and not think of it. But it's at this point, with all of the similarities, I mean, there are quotes word for word, there are scenes beat for beat that are the exact same. It's almost impossible not to think of and or compare it to the original. So that is something I'm struggling with. It's something that I'm really excited when I'm done to see other people who are reading it, not knowing the story and seeing how they feel about it. The flashbacks, I'm very interested to see how those also play out. There's a lot of them, and this is the one thing I'm going to say is in the original work, the flashbacks are the story. Feels like they're disrupting the main story, which you would think would be the present time, but in my opinion, the flashbacks are the actual story, and then the present time is not meant to be the center of it all. So I'm hoping that there's a chance I will build that emotional connection. However, I feel like in order for those flashbacks and for all of this past information being unveiled to have the impact that it did when I first read the original work, you needed to have an emotional connection and investment in those characters, specifically the female character. I think also something that I don't think I can truly speak on this book alone is the character development or arc of Farron, because obviously I know the truth of that character, or at least I'm fairly confident that I do. Therefore, when they are doing certain things or saying certain things, I'm sitting there already kind of aware of like the behind the scenes and the true meaning and true feelings that are actually happening within that character. I think also this book so far really could have used an extra round of edits. I think that the author deserved to have the publisher care a bit more about cleaning it up and polishing it a bit more. I've spoken with several people who have agreed that there is just a lot of repetitiveness with several words. Obviously, we all know my distaste for the word resonance, but that's only one. There are a lot. And then another thing is the world building so far feels, though I don't think it's been done super well necessarily, I do feel like when we have focused on world building, it's been on things that I don't personally care about, nor do I personally feel are important. I wish that when we had those moments of info dumping on like the history of a building as Helena was going up and like, or going down, I don't know, in an elevator. I wish that sort of attention and time was spent more on explaining this fucking magic system to me, because I'm just nodding my head. I think I understand what's going on, but I genuinely couldn't fully describe. I get it, but I don't. And that's one thing that I think when it comes to a fantasy book, you do want people to have an understanding, or at least a good foundation of your magic system, so that as they then read, they can start filling in blanks with context clues because they have a good enough foundation of it. A lot of the times in some reviews, you'll see people say that they didn't think that the author trusted the reader because they just kept handing them everything on a silver platter and spelling it out for you. In some ways, I feel like this author is trusting the reader too much when it comes to the magic system and expecting us to just pick up on it. And as someone who is not familiar with alchemy, who is not familiar with necromancy, I'm gonna need you to not trust me a bit more. I'm gonna need you to speak to me as if this is my first time encountering any of this, because it is. And it's also my first time encountering it in your interpretation. Those are really my few things. Overall, I don't think this is a bad book. I think that this is a book, again, I would die to be able to read without any prior knowledge so that I could truly give an unbiased opinion on it. I feel like with this, there are going to be a lot of biased reviews on it, whether it be in favor or not in favor of it, because there are going to be some people who love the original work and they're going to love how similar it is and how much they are aware of details in the story, and there are going to be people like me who almost wish that they didn't know anything, because in some ways it is impacting their experience with it. But then we're also going to hopefully get the people who read it who have no fucking clue. And hopefully they aren't listening to those people who are full of shit saying that you need to read the original work. No, you fucking don't. There's no required reading for this. Anywho, those are just my thoughts as of right now. I'm definitely not finishing the book in this video, but I will obviously have more videos where I probably will finish it. I'm also going to do obviously like a review in short form content on YouTube or on Instagram and TikTok, but I think I'll do a more in-depth one here on YouTube as well. I think there's something about TikTok and Instagram, specifically TikTok, the algorithm, that I don't always trust it for. I'm always honest in my reviews and I will give constructive criticism, but I am aware that the TikTok algorithm really doesn't always know when to differentiate, and there's a higher chance. I don't think the author's actually on TikTok, but there's a higher chance that an author can stumble upon that. Whereas if you're finding my full-length review where I'm just going in on it, you had to have searched that up to some degree, you know, and you had to press play, you had to click it. Whereas TikTok, it just starts playing. That's not to say that I'm expecting or anticipating to roast this book. I do think that there are going to be things where I'm going to praise the author. I also just think in general, a 90-second review will not fully encapsulate all of my thoughts and feelings on a story of this length, as would a chance of me doing it in a long form content. So even if I don't do like a reading vlog of me finishing the rest of this book, you will get my full thoughts. And as we know, I love to talk, so it is difficult for me to make short form content. You want me to shut up and end it off at 90 seconds? Damn.